Awesome. Thank you for doing that. All right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the Discover the Difference LGBTQ webinar with the Tepper School of Business. My name is Jackie Otto. I'm an Associate Director of Master's Admissions, and I'm excited for you to join us and learn more about the Tepper community. I've worked at Tepper for 8 years. Sometimes it feels like 20, but 8 years. And at Tepper, I'm the lead recruiter for LGBTQ candidates. I'm a very passionate ally and care about the experience and support of our LGBTQ students, faculty, staff, and alumni. And the purpose of today's webinar is to help you understand the distinct benefits of the Tepper MBA curriculum and diverse community by hearing directly from our current students. And today we're going to be focusing on the experiences of LGBTQ students. And I'm joined today by several first and second year MBA students who are going to share their experiences and answer your questions. And we have some topics to get us started, and then we're going to do our best to get to as many of your questions as we can. So please feel free to share your questions in the Q&A, and we'll address them as we can. All right, so thank you, students, for taking your time. I know you have very full schedules, especially with the end of the semester coming up. And you're here today on our panel. So I wanted to start with a round of introductions. So Michael, if you'll start, just tell me your name, what year you are in the program, your hometown, where you went to school, what you were doing before the MBA, and what are you planning to do post-MBA?
Yeah, so hello everyone, my name is Michael. I'm currently a first year MBA student and I'm originally from the Bay Area, but I did my undergraduate at UC Santa Cruz. And before Tepper, I worked at a contract research organization doing pharmaceutical consulting, where I was providing drug development and manufacturing support services for my clients to meet their regulatory requirements. A little bit looking toward the future. I'm probably going to pivot more toward the operations side of the business. I'm currently targeting leadership development programs or LDPs.
Awesome. Ashley.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ashley. I am a current second year in the full-time MBA program. I'm from the Baltimore area, so go Ravens. It's interesting living in Pittsburgh while being a Ravens fan. But I went to the University of Maryland for my undergrad. I majored in psychology and minored in neuroscience. And for the 5 years prior to business school, I actually did neuroscience research. My last job was a research coordinator in a neurological surgery lab. And I really wanted to pivot toward business and specifically healthcare consulting. So after my MBA, I'll be working for the Chartis Group, which is a healthcare consulting firm in Chicago.
Awesome. Thank you, Ashley. All right, Ham, your turn.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ham Suripanishkan. I'm a current second year MBA class of 2021. My hometown is Bangkok, Thailand. I'm international student. I went to Chulalongkorn University. It's one of the university in Bangkok. I have a BS in industrial engineering. Prior to Tepper, I work in the commercial bank as an operation strategist for about 5 years, and I got sponsored by my company. So after MBA, I would return to my company. I plan to work in a section about implementing a technology because right now I'm pursuing the technology strategy and product management track. So looking forward to working as a product manager or project manager to run a technology project.
That sounds exciting. Thank you, Ham, for sharing that. All right, last but not least, we have Sean. Tell us about yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sean McDowell. I'm a second year MBA student in the full-time program, and I'm from Flint, Michigan. I went to undergrad at the University of Michigan, and before my MBA, I was kind of all over in the tech world, from back-end development up to strategy, but most recently, before the MBA, I was doing product strategy and product design in Shanghai. Post-MBA, I'm looking to move into tech strategy consulting, but kind of indeterminate where.
Awesome. And I realized I have not shared my screen with the PowerPoint, so I'm going to try and get that up here. All right, so you can see that. Let me get back to the screen here. All right, so I know that not long ago, you were all considering MBA programs and doing your research and thinking about where it is that you wanted to end up. And I think I met all of you throughout your MBA journey before coming to Tepper at some point. So as you were considering schools, you probably heard about leadership and analytics, about Tepper. It probably came up somehow. So now that you're in the program, can a few of you share maybe some insight into how you believe the focus on leadership and analytics helps Tepper students stand apart, and maybe how it's helped you enhance or add these skills to your experience?
I can take this one. I think the leadership opportunities at Tepper are pretty unparalleled. I've had a lot of chances to lead fellow students in various different things, including clubs, case competitions, group projects. There's just so many opportunities to be a leader that you'd have to work pretty hard not to lead at some point in your career at Tepper. As far as the analytics, all of our classes, most of our classes, I'd say, have some sort of analytical component to them. There are some classes that are more analytic heavy, like modern data management. Obviously, that's going to have a lot of working with data and manipulating data. But other classes, like even just statistics, like some courses at other business schools or other master's programs may have a statistics course where you learn about the theory and the math behind it. But at Tepper, we not only learn that, but we also learn how to use R to manipulate data in the statistics problems that we have. So I think that the leadership and analytic depth that we have at Tepper has been one of the best I could have hoped for, going into business school.
Yeah, definitely would echo what Ashley said. The kind of business in a nutshell is being able to translate those quantifiable metrics to solve real problems, and really developing those like kind of soft skills almost in addition to the quantifiable skills is really important. And I feel like at least my experience at Tepper so far, and also just like the reputation of school, we do have a really good balance between both of those sides. And it's really important to develop both of those sides as well as you move forward in your professional career.
Now, I know some of your classmates, or maybe you, didn't have an analytical background before coming to Tepper, and that might be something that people are concerned or worried about in terms of their experience professionally or academically. Is there maybe support that you or your classmates have had that have helped you maybe navigate some of those new concepts, or in terms of classes, perhaps? Is there some support or resources that you've seen either for yourself or for your classmates that have been helpful?
So I guess I can go. So I personally came in with a strong quant background, but I do know a lot of people in my cohort who may not have had as much of a quant background. But I would say that the environment at Tepper, just with the size of our program, is very friendly and very collaborative. And there's a lot of resources with your classmates to really get the help you need. And that's in addition to the professors are very understanding. There's a lot of resources on the academic level as well, through the institution, through the classes and the professors directly. So I would say between kind of your personal connections, there's also your connections with the faculty, that there's really a lot of resources if you don't come in with as much of a quantitative background.
Yeah, I can echo that. I came in with like a medium quant background. I did research. I took some math classes in college, but I wasn't at the level where I knew everything I needed to know. And so during base camp, we do basically like a math camp, like an intensive math course, and it really gets you up to speed on everything that you need to know for your courses. But as Michael said, it's very collaborative, and I know a lot of people say that, but it's actually really true at Tepper. If I have issues, like I'm taking a health economics course at the Heinz College, which you can also do. You can take classes at other colleges. And I was really struggling with some, economic concepts. And I recalled a classmate, Prashant, who I knew he was really good at economics when we took when we took, a different economics course together. So I reached out to him, explained the problem, and he took some time out of his schedule, spent like an hour zooming with me to try and help me figure out the problem. So it's super collaborative. And then if you don't know exactly how to do a problem, you can rely on your classmates, and you can definitely rely on your professors to do office hours as well.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And I guess for the whole collective group here on the panel, is there anything else that contributed to your decision to choose Tepper for your MBA that you wanted to share?
I can share to that. So go back to the business and technology. The one that I really interesting to me is the technology strategy and product management track that I just mentioned, because because Tepper can leverage the class and resources from the computer science school. Like this mini, I take a class in computer science school called the Introduction to Human Computer Interaction for Technology Executives. It's kind of very broaden my knowledge about the design in the technology framework. And also at the end of the next mini, I will have an opportunity to do the capstone project with the real company out there and help them implementing the technology. That's one, it's really cool, and I'm looking forward to do that. And it's one of the, that make during my decision process.
That sounds awesome, and a great opportunity to take advantage of things across campus. And I know, Ashley, you also mentioned that too. So it sounds like it's pretty easy to do if you are interested in taking classes or participating in research or clubs across the school, which is fantastic. All right. And did anybody want to add anything else? I'm sorry, I didn't.
I'd like to add something shortly. So I actually was introduced to Tepper because my current fiance went to Tepper. He graduated in 2018, and I wasn't completely out as a bisexual woman. And I knew that this time was probably coming up where I'd like to come out. And it was probably going to happen, while I was going to graduate school. And knowing how supportive Out and Allied was to me personally, while my fiance was in school, I knew that Tepper was a really safe place to be, and I did end up coming out completely to my family. They were super supportive of me during this time, not only Out and Allied, but also CMQ Plus, which is the LGBTQ plus community at CMU as a whole. So I wanted to be in a place I knew that I would feel safe in coming out, and it went great. So.
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit more about Out and Allied and CMUQ Plus and other support that we have. But thank you for sharing that, Ashley. And I want to shift gears a little bit here and briefly talk about outcomes and the Career Opportunities Center, because obviously going to the MBA program, you're looking to do something different with your career, whether it's function industry or enhance your opportunities. So I just want to learn a little bit about your involvement with the Master's Career Center in terms of job search preparation and how they've supported you, whether it's for your internship or your post-MBA goals. Sean, do you want to start?
Yeah, I was gonna say I can jump in. Sorry, can you repeat that though? I coughed right while you were finishing up that question. So
sure. So it's just about the Master's Career Center, like speaking to the support that you've had with your job search preparation. How have they supported you in your goals, or what resources have helped you, I think, in your professional search?
Sure. And so I guess I'll preface this with last year, I didn't do a ton of recruiting through on-campus means just because of what I was looked at going into, and that changed a bit this year. But where I found the MCC really helpful in that process was being a sounding board for the big picture strategy for my career. So it was people who had broad experience. You can go and talk to any of the number of counselors, and that was exactly what I did, was just really going and getting different perspectives on, thinking about the short term and the long term, and realizing that, as someone like me who was kind of looking to pivot their career, you you do need to plan that carefully. And so it was sitting down and getting feedback from multiple parties of what's a good intermediary point where I can stop and, do a summer internship, and realizing that maybe I need to do re-recruiting in the fall. And the MCC was really helpful in offering that guidance and what's going to be beneficial for me. And I guess the other part of that strategy would be really getting in contact with alumni or even with recruiters that the MCC are the people who are interacting with those people regularly at companies where we have good relations. And so there was always a ton of willingness to help if I reached out. One example that comes to mind is Visa, where I was talking to last year and, having some frustrations, and the MCC just immediately sent back like 7 names of people to get in contact with at Visa. And so there was a lot of support there. I would also say, in terms of thinking about the resume and interview prep strategy and what is that story you want to tell, an absolute fantastic resource to get that starting point in the big strategy. And then you can, keep refining and using them as a sounding board to go back and say, how can I enhance this?
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. I know, Ham, you had some insight about your experience with the Master's Career Center.
Yeah, my experience maybe kind of different from other people because I'm a sponsored student, but anyway, I can still leverage the resource from the MCC because in first year, every student are mandatory to have a resume review and also interview prep once with the MCC staff. So I go through that process, and it kind of helped me a lot to review and kind of finishing up for everything about my resume is kind of go through the reviews, and it looks much better compared to the version that I submitted when I apply for the MBA. And another thing I would like to mention is the career track. I went to the career track twice. The first one is during the fall break. I went to the Silicon Valley, and we went to many tech company out there, Google, Facebook, Intuit, and Salesforce. And another one is happened in the January. I went to with the Media and Entertainment Club, where we focus on the media and entertainment industry. I went to Hulu, and the one that I'm really excited is we went to a rap game, the League of Legends creators. I'm one of the fans. Like I have 10 years play. I have 10 years experience players of League of Legends. So it's very good for me to visit the campus of the company that I really like and enjoy. Learn the career track purposes is about educational purposes. So student will learn more about the company culture and talk to the staff and have some question and answer about that. So it's really good that you have some touch point with the company. So when you come back to the university and you prepare for your interview, you can add that during your interview. That's really cool.
Yeah, and I think the treks also help students get exposed to companies that maybe weren't on your radar before, that you weren't considering. But learning about the culture of where you might be working is really important, and those treks really provide that opportunity. And it's also created by the clubs. The clubs are working with the Master's Career Center, so it's a leadership opportunity as well to plan these treks within the clubs and working with the Career Center. Well, thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate that. And I know Ramba is also something that we're going to talk about a little bit more in terms of the career prep as well, as it is a conference that our students can attend with the Reaching Out organization. And I don't know, should we talk about that now, Michael? Or would you like to talk about kind of what your experience was?
Yeah, so I did Ramba this year. It was a little bit different than I think in previous years, where it was more on the remote side. There was no in-person conference as there normally is. But I would say that it was still a really great experience for me to go, even in the virtual format. It was very well organized, and I did National Black a little bit before Ramba, and to say Ramba was significantly better organized. I think that also aligns pretty well with people's experience going in person in the previous years. But yeah, Ramba is it's still more or less an exclusive conference for LGBTQ. and which made it a really good opportunity to really get networking with companies who are looking for that type of recruiting and those type of applicants. And it was a really good experience, just kind of getting more face time and getting more one-on-one with the recruiters, as well as learning more about their company in terms of diversity and inclusion. And I say that even in the virtual format, it was really easy to make really good connections with the companies and also connections with students from other schools. I made quite a number of connections with some other students around the country in different MBA programs, and still do keep in the contact with them. So it's a really great way to kind of network and continue to grow your professional understanding of different companies within the industries you may be interested in.
And I know we've had both in person and our virtual platform this year, like a pre-Ramba get together with alumni as well. And I think that that's also in current students. And usually Colleen, the executive director for community inclusion, and sometimes the Master's Career Center will be there too. But that's also a great opportunity to connect with LGBTQ alums from the Tepper School for many, many years. I think, because you only have the benefit of being in classes with those above you and below you in terms of your year, but the alumni network goes on and on. And it's just great to have that opportunity to connect with people that are also going to be there for their companies recruiting as well. And it's fun for me because I get to see a lot of familiar faces as well. And Sean, I know you've gone to the conference in person, is that right? If you could talk a little bit about that recruiting element to the conference event.
Yeah, sure. So the in-person event was really exhausting. There is a ton going on at any given moment. And basically you kind of arrive and there's, a full day set up where people are doing coffee chats with companies. And a lot of times those companies are looking to extend interview invites within the next 2 or 3 days while you're at the conference. There's also a lot of educational opportunities at the conference. They have different sessions on any given topic you could possibly want to learn about. Even if it's not necessarily directly related to the LGBTQ community, there are tons of events just on business in general as a resource that's there for you, or even leadership. With the recruiting aspect, the main event really is the career fair, which is kind of hosted on the second or third day. Sometimes both. I think in the virtual format, it was kind of hosted over 2 days. Just a great opportunity to go again and meet companies that maybe didn't reach out to you through the online portal where you've placed your resume, and really it is targeted to whoever you want to go to, you go see, and you can prioritize that way and kind of look and see where there's a line and think about it. But yeah, you're able to make those connections, and they're really open to talking to literally anyone who approaches them. The ratio of recruiters to students at Ramba is generally around 2 recruiters to every student. So there's not really a danger of you not having someone to talk to at kind of any company you go to.
That's exciting. And hopefully we'll be able to send more students to Ramba this next year. I know they've scheduled the dates. I saw on their website, they've scheduled the dates for 2021 already. So excited to see how that turns out for our students. Well, I want to shift gears here, and we've talked about the Master's Career Center a little bit, but I want to talk about what's probably the most important part of this event today is the diverse community at Tepper. And one of the Tepper School's values is a diversity of thought, because we believe in a diverse community, creating a richer and more robust learning environment. So I just wanted to know, how do you believe the Tepper School fosters an inclusive community?
I guess I can talk a little bit about that. Part of the strength I feel like with Tepper is that the class size, we are kind of a relatively small program, which really does work in our benefit. And kind of stemming straight out of admissions, we have a really diverse group of people. I feel like admissions does a really good job. You will come into this program and there will most likely not be anybody who is like you in terms of culture, in terms of professional background or personal background. And I think that's really a strength for this program, is that kind of that melting pot of the different ideas. And I think it is really important to be surrounded by people who may not have a similar background as you, because you're really going to learn a lot from your classmates as well as from the program itself. And really being able to start working with your classmates and learning how they see things, if you will learn a lot of things in terms of soft skills, quantifiable skills, everything. So I think that's really important, just really fostering that diverse community in terms of growing personally and professionally.
I completely agree with Michael. I think just the sheer, the small number of people that we have and the very diverse backgrounds that everyone comes from really helps contribute to the success that people have at Tepper. Another thing that I really like is certain classes will have randomized groups. And that's kind of how I've met a lot of people that I wouldn't necessarily have worked with, just because I, hadn't had a chance to run into them. And that might be, based on chance or own personal biases or something. But it's been really nice to get to know people in this like forced kind of setting where it's really randomized and you just, you get to know so many people that way.
That's great. Thank you, Ashley and Michael, for sharing your experiences about that. I know we've gotten a couple of questions already about Out and Allied, so I want to spend some time here talking about that organization specifically, because you're all involved with Out and Allied, and I, meet with Sean and have met with, attended some of your programs and events too. And I love every time I meet with Out and Allied, I always feel like it's going to be a great day on my calendar. And when I see that, it makes me happy. So I wanted to know, with Out and Allied, for the benefit of our attendees here, how does Out and Allied support LGBTQ students at Tepper?
I think I can start from that. There's several events and things that happen that can support. The one that I would kind of bring up first is the ally discussion event. I think it's good that our ally have this kind of event that brings people, those who are not LGBTQ community, and have a small group talk about many topics. We have like unconscious bias topic, we have hate speech, and it's very safe environment for students to talk about that. We have like a very close, like around 10, 15 people, and that happens at least once a month. And is I enjoy that conversation and listen to the news perspective and that I never knew, because I'm coming from Thailand. It's kind of, the culture is kind of very different, and it's very good opportunity that I can learn from my colleagues, my classmates here, about news perspectives, about how to be a good, how to have a good allyship, especially whether it is LGBTQ student or maybe just other clubs like Women in Tepper and Business, and I think it's good.
Yeah, maybe if anybody else can also answer, how did you get involved in Out and Allied, and what are some of the programming events? Like I know, Ham, you were talking about the Allied discussion. If there's other programming events that you've really enjoyed in your experience, Sean, if you want to go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I guess I would divide the way we work to support the LGBTQ plus community into a couple different areas. And one of them would be professional, another would be educational, I think is a lot of what Ham was focusing on. And then of course we just have social things to make sure, people are seeing the community as people, right? And so in terms of educational events, as Ham said, we focus on those ally discussions. We have had events in the past focused on just the history of LGBTQ. A lot of that aimed at providing context for students who aren't necessarily part of that community about, this is where we're coming from as a group and as individuals, and kind of the struggles we might face on a daily basis that you don't realize. Then we have professional. This year we started implementing workshops to help provide resources to prep for Ramba. So I think this year we kind of paired all of the Out and Allied members with a board member who they could work through their resume with in getting that prepped, in addition to the work they could have done through their mentor, through the Graduate Business Association, and through working with the MCC. So we had that opportunity available as well. And then we did some additional kind of prep workshops where we got together a couple weeks before Ramba and allowed those people attending for the first time an opportunity to get feedback on maybe a tell me about yourself or even just some behavioral questions. And so there is an increased focus moving forward in that professional aspect as well.
Sounds like there's a lot going on with Out and Allied. I always feel like that the organization has like a full calendar of stuff going on, and it's wonderful. I mean, it's all about education, social and professional. So it's really a well-rounded organization. So thank you for being a part of it and helping lead, because I know you're on the board, Sean. And I know that Out and Allied has also collaborated with other organizations too. So if anybody could talk about maybe some of those events that have been co-hosted or co-sponsored, would love to hear a little bit more about that.
I can talk about one of my favorite events is the Pink Party. This is an event that we host every year, and I actually looked back into the calendar, and it's been around for quite a time now, 10 or 15 years or so. And the Pink Party is co-hosted with TWIB, or TWIB is the Tepper Women in Business Club. And it's a fundraiser to raise money for the Breast Cancer Research Foundation. This year we hosted it virtually, of course. We still had a good showing, but every year, we go out to an LGBTQ bar, like a friendly gay bar in the neighborhood, and everyone wears pink, and it's a really great social event that's co-hosted by TWIB. But I think another great event is our Rosé All Day event that we host with TWIB and the Wine Club and Culinary Club. And it's like a big barbecue that we host at the beginning of the year to kind of welcome new students and also welcome back the second years. And it's just a great way to socialize. And unfortunately, no, we did have it this year. It was virtual this year. But in person, it's a lot of fun because people bring their dogs. We're out in a park, and it's just a great way to get to know people from different clubs.
Awesome. And one other thing, I as you were talking, Ashley, it sort of triggered my memory of another programming event that Out and Allied puts on. And I don't know if it's co-sponsored or not, but it's through, I think, Inclusion Week, but coming out stories. So I don't know if anybody wanted to share their experience as an attendee or participant in some way about what coming out stories is for those folks that are attending today to learn more about that.
Yeah, so Coming Out Stories is a really great event, usually extremely well attended. I was, privileged to be asked to speak at the Coming Out Stories this year. And, we had like over 100 people on a Zoom call who just sat and listened to 3 of us share our stories about how we came out. And yeah, it was a very heartwarming event. I actually, there were some people who live in my apartment complex, and after I was done speaking, I hear applause, and I was like, what? And I look behind me, and there's a window, and they were in my courtyard, like clapping, like they came out and clapped for me because they had been watching it out there. So that was really cool. But yeah, I don't know if anyone else wanted to share their experience with the 10.
Yeah, I attend this event last year, also this year is one of the biggest Out and Allied events of all, and I look forward to listening to every participant. Even this year, I didn't have a chance to be speakers, but it's good that you learn from your classmate. Some stories are very emotional, and I kind of like so touching, and after the event ends, like people just keep continue sitting in the room in the Zoom meeting and keep continuing the conversation. I think it's very good that we have that kind of moment.
Yeah, it's a great event. It's one of my favorites for sure. Just to learn more about, your backgrounds and experiences and stories. And it has consistently been one of the most well-attended events that any club has put on. And so I'm just really proud of that and all the work that you all do to put that together. So thank you. And for presenting this year, Ashley, I did get to hear you. So I was really excited to hear your story. So thank you for sharing that. We had another question come in about the greater Pittsburgh community or maybe CMU community in terms of support of LGBTQ plus students. And I've lived in Pittsburgh for a while, and I know Ashley, you've lived here for a little bit too. Are there some experiences across campus or within Pittsburgh that you've utilized that maybe some of our folks attending today could benefit from hearing from about you?
There's a pretty big Pride event that goes on, every June. They do Pride kickoff here in Shadyside, which is the neighborhood where most of us live. Pride this year was not that big, but last year was a lot of fun. It was hosted actually over one of the bridges. So it was a really cool event. And actually, it was so big that it couldn't just go over a bridge, it spread out. I'm not super active in the LGBTQ community in Pittsburgh generally, just because I have a lot of resources available at Tepper. I don't know if anyone else has experience with the Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I can talk about that a little bit. I mean, it's going to be a little bit broad in general because we're super busy, but yeah, I mean, there's a really, really great LGBTQ community in Pittsburgh, and it's very inclusive. And I mean, people are very open to just welcoming anyone. I mean, to illustrate, I've just, pre-COVID, I had just gone to one of the LGBTQ bars outside of Shadyside and just by myself, and was like, I'm gonna go look at this. And people were just chatting with me. I had been here, like I was a regular there. So that's something I really appreciated. And I think that's something indicative of the greater, I guess, Pittsburgh culture is people are generally pretty friendly and willing to have just a random conversation with you. In terms of actual resources or activities, there's an LGBTQ plus interest group for pretty much anything you could ever imagine in Pittsburgh. So it is a great place to get started. I mean, these are things you can find online. And I'm blanking on the name of the, I guess, broader organization that collects all of these. Jackie or Ashley, maybe off the top of your head. But yeah, I mean, all you really have to do is if you're interested in an LGBTQ book club in Pittsburgh, you can Google that and find 15 immediately. And so there's likely one in whatever neighborhood you're living in, Pittsburgh being a city that really cares about its neighborhoods to a large degree. But yeah, I think Ashley did a good job answering that as well.
Yeah, I mean, you are all MBA students and so busy. It's hard to, I think, engage in the greater Pittsburgh community. But I think as someone who's lived here for a while, I've been involved in the Pride Parade and actually marched with it was called Allies Grad at the time. Now it's CMUQ plus. And the Pride Parade, when it was in person, was enormous. And it was just so awesome to see how many people and organizations were marching. And I know students are typically on their internship, so not a lot of MBA students are here to see that. But definitely, if that resumes in person, hopefully we'll be able to get together for that. But there's a lot of organizations here, and I know PERSAD, Gay for Good. If you want to volunteer, there's a gay organization for that. If you want to get involved in a professional organization, there's the Three Rivers Alliance. There's a lot of support that students can have in so many ways in Pittsburgh, but Out and Allied seems to be sort of the first place where you go to because it's in Tepper. But there's certainly a lot of support within the community here in Pittsburgh as well. So I wanted to shift and talk a little bit more about ROMBA again, but reaching out as an organization, not just as the conference, because it does offer support for our students too in other ways. And Sean, I don't know if you'd be able to talk about this, but maybe some of the benefits or opportunities that you've gained through reaching out, because they are a partner with us at the Tepper School. So I just wanted to know if you could share a little bit more about other ways that you've been involved with reaching out.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. It's been a while since I've talked to anyone within the actual organization for reaching out, but certainly I think that's a big value of going to ROMBA as a conference is you meet a lot of those people involved in the organization. and just kind of people all over the country in different programs, and are able to use those as contacts. So, I mean, yeah, I definitely expanded my LinkedIn network at the in-person conference last year, just meeting other people. And I mean, there are people who I met at the conference who I do speak with still regularly. Sorry, that's not really a great answer here, but.
There's also, I know with the Ramba reaching out, they have the Student Leadership Summit where we've sent students to go to as well. They've had the career treks before students start their MBA as well. So there's some professional opportunities to learn about different companies. And those I think were virtual this year as well. But it is a leadership development opportunity as well, and to network and meet, like you said, other students from other programs, because you might end up at the same company with some of these, folks someday. So it's great to have establish those friendships and connections early on. So you never know who you're going to meet at the conference, or maybe a trek, or even in the Student Leadership Summit as well. So we were talking a little bit about Pittsburgh earlier, and I just want to hear maybe some experiences, in your transition moving to Pittsburgh, or if there's any resources or things that you've taken advantage of here, because I feel like, unless you've visited Pittsburgh, you don't really know Pittsburgh, and people might have a perception of what this city's really like, or what it's like, but versus what it really is like. So I just want to learn a little bit more about your transition to Pittsburgh and how you've taken advantage of living here so far.
I can start. Oh, sorry, Ham.
Go
You can
ahead,
go ahead.
Ashley. Okay.
Okay. I moved here in 2016, like I said, for my now fiance, then boyfriend, to go to Tepper. And I got a lot of support from the Partners Club, actually. I learned about, he was busy trying to figure out what classes he was going to take and that kind of thing. So it was kind of up to me to find the apartment, and it was really helpful. They have during welcome weekend, they have these seminars that you can go to where they talk about all the different neighborhoods in Pittsburgh, and how Shadyside is like where most people will live, but what it's also like to live in like Squirrel Hill and all these other neighborhoods. So I found a lot of useful information from the Partners Club, and support from them. And then also there's like a book that you get at welcome weekend, where it tells you about each neighborhood and like the average cost of an apartment, average square footage that you might find, that kind of thing. So I thought that was really helpful.
Yeah, I want to echo to that because I was coming to Thailand. I never visited Pittsburgh before. I've only been in the US once. That time I was in Boston, and I didn't travel to Pittsburgh. I travel around US like Chicago, New York. So basically, when I think about moving to US, I try to prioritize the city that kind of have somewhere, so I don't have to buy a car here. And I was concerned at first about moving to Pittsburgh, but when I attend one of the session that admission teams hosted, and they have a current student talking about the life in Pittsburgh, they mentioned that 70% of the class don't own a car. So basically we travel around the city with buses. And I think it's very useful to know that, because that's the factor that I'm looking for. And also admission teams also provide a kind of handbook resources that tells you about all the neighborhood areas in Pittsburgh, and what kind of the areas that character of the each area, so that you can decide which area you would like to live in. And basically most of the people in our class stay in Shadyside or Squirrel Hill or Oakland.
Yeah, I can add that. So coming from the West Coast, definitely have never been to Pittsburgh, or you thought about Pittsburgh until kind of looking at programs. And last year I was able to attend Diversity Weekend, which was on campus last fall. And so that was my first time coming to Pittsburgh. And I have to say I was very pleasantly surprised. There's a lot more things than I think people initially think there are to do in Pittsburgh. And it is, very much like a city. In terms of like housing situation in residential neighborhoods, most students do live in Shadyside, which is the district kind of closer to campus. And like during diversity weekend, I kind of met a lot of contacts and current students now, and they were able to help me through the process when I was looking for apartments, which was really helpful. Just, asking, hey, what about this location versus this location in terms of the bus routes, in terms of being able to potentially walk to campus or bus to campus. And overall, like things in Shadyside, you really don't need a car. There are a good number of students who do have a car, but you can get around through the bus and walking. And there's a lot of different stores like Target, there's a Trader Joe's, there's a Whole Foods, there's a lot of options that are very easily that you can walk to.
And I think that's also a great point considering what's going on in the world right now, that there are a lot of things that are accessible for students that is walkable in terms of those grocery stores, restaurants, and places of worship and things like that. So, and other times it would be important as well. But I think with everything that's going on in the world with the pandemic, it's nice that you don't have to travel too far to get to the things that you need. And I love that neighborhood, Shadyside, the East End, Point Breeze, Squirrel Hill, all of those neighborhoods have a lot to offer, and everything that you really need is within your neighborhood. So you don't have to go too far. And it really is affordable. Like Michael, what you were saying, coming from the West Coast to Pittsburgh, I'm sure the rent prices are a lot different here than there. So you do get more for your dollar here, which I think is wonderful. And I could talk a lot about Pittsburgh. I know we don't have enough time to talk more about it, but if anybody wants to chat with me about Pittsburgh, more than happy to. But I want to talk about something that I think might be on the minds of our prospective students and candidates as they're considering coming to Tepper. And there's a unique opportunity for LGBTQ plus prospective students to share more about their identity in the application for Tepper for their MBA. And if you feel comfortable, can any of you share maybe your experience for our listeners and what insight you might want to share with them about being out or not being out during the MBA application process?
I can go ahead and start this one just as one opinion. I would say if you're comfortable sharing that, I would say absolutely talk about that in your application if you feel it's something that's important to you. And I know that's kind of a non-answer, but it really is just whatever you're comfortable with and whatever you think is an important aspect of representing who you are. Jackie, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the application form does just, it asks you to self-identify. So you don't necessarily even have to talk about that in any kind of essay you're submitting. You can just identify there in that question.
Yeah, that's correct. Yep.
Yeah. And that information is not really getting used anywhere outside of admissions. Even, as the admissions officer for Out and Allied, I have to kind of beg to get the list of incoming LGBTQ plus students and ask really nicely once those applications have gone out. So there is a real respect for your privacy there and what you are comfortable with disclosing.
I can add to that. I think the benefit of kind of identify yourself in the application is, I think there's one box that kind of you can choose whether you would like to be contact with the club or Out and Ally club or not. And if you do that, it's good that you can get in touch with the current student earlier because you kind of identify first so that the current student can reach out to you. And the reason I come to MBA, one of the reasons is that I would like to develop my leadership as a gay leaders in the future. So I think it's good that you kind of identify that in your application so that everything is set on board when you come to the school and you can quickly jump right in whatever you would like to do in the MBA journey.
Yeah, I think, we meet you where you are. Whatever you feel comfortable sharing and talking about is completely your decision. You can self-identify if you want to, which can help us in sharing more resources and opportunities. But we, again, know that that's not where everyone is in their journey, and completely understand that, we're here to meet you where you are. And if there's anything that we can do to be helpful, we certainly will. But it's really, up to each person what they want to do or not do. But happy to talk more about that after today as well. If you have any questions, whether or not you should check the box or what it means. But thank you for sharing your answers about that. I know it's a sensitive topic, and there's a lot of things to consider, especially with different cultures and backgrounds for our candidates. And as we are approaching the end of the webinar here, I just wanted to know if there's any final words of wisdom or advice that you have about Tepper, the MBA, careers, out and allied, anything at all. If there's some words of wisdom that you might want to share for our prospective students today.
Yeah, I
I'll
can
go
say a little bit
first.
about, do you want to go
Oh.
first, Ashley?
Oh no, Michael, you can go.
Okay. Yeah, so this is a little bit more fresh in my mind, I guess, than some of my other panelists. But one thing I would really stress is that there is not a ton of room on the application. So real estate is very important. You really want to make sure that each of these sections is bringing a different part of your background, your personality. And I think it's really important to make sure that you can bring these to the table. Like even I know there's like shorter essay questions about what are your short-term, what are your long-term goals or your plan B. Use those spaces strategically almost. Like you want to make sure you really show as much of your personality and your background as you can. And I guess my second advice would be that, there is no single thing that's going to get you into a program, and there's no single thing that's going to get you, prevent you from getting into a program. So really mitigate and look at your application kind of holistically, and remember that, you may have weaknesses on your application, but make sure that you have, stories of why those are weaknesses and maybe what you've done to attack, to confront those. And also, some people may have poor GPAs or poor GMAT scores. It's important that, this is a holistic process. So just don't get too bogged down if maybe one thing is sticking out to you that may look particularly weak, because there are other components of your application.
I completely agree, Michael. Very well said. I was just going to add, always be your authentic self. I know that in the application process, it may feel tempting to, I don't know, exaggerate things or make things seem grander than they are. But, the things that everyone has accomplished there's something significant there. Just if you be yourself and talk about your true experiences, it can't get any better than that. So I just think it's important, in talking about, your essays and things like that. It doesn't have to be super grand. It just has to be authentic.
I couldn't emphasize more about, the importance of knowing your goals, why you would like to pursue MBA. It's very important. And because it's not just about for application process, but also it's important during your MBA journey in 2 years in the school, because you're gonna get overwhelmed by so many resources that the school can offer to you. And it's good that you have some guidance, your goal in your mind, so you know what you would like to do, and you don't get you get distracted a lot because you want to do this, do that, and you saw people do this, and I would like to do that too. But if you have a goal, you can have a very kind of clear path throughout the end of your MBA journey. You might change your goal during the MBA because you learned something new, and that's fine, right?
And I'll just really quickly say, I'm not sure there's much more to add. I think Michael, Ashley, and Ham did a great job answering that question. I do think it's worth reiterating, I think the point Michael made about knowing your weaknesses and not being afraid to acknowledge them. And I'm not saying you have to put in an essay, hey, this is my weakness, and say that. But you could acknowledge that by showing, even if you have a low GPA, saying I've been taking this additional coursework and I've done really well. That shows that you understand what a weakness is without you actually explicitly stating it, and that you are putting effort into that. And I think ultimately that's what's more important when applications are looked at is are you self-aware enough to know where you need to put in the time? And so I think that's super important. And then the other thing would be what Ashley said about being your authentic self. Like, don't feel the need to try to tailor an essay to like the type of personality you think is being looked for. And this is true of really, I think, for any program. Like, it's really hard to say, and you have to remember there's a ton of diversity in every program. So like, we're looking for you to be yourself, because we want to know the type of people who are going to be our classmates and future colleagues.
Thank you all for sharing that. I really appreciate your insight, because you were not that long ago going through this process. And I think now that you're in the program, have some valuable perspective to offer. So thank you for sharing that. And I know we do have our round 2 application coming up. January 10th is the deadline. And then we have round 3 later in March, and round 4 as well. So we're looking forward to receiving your applications, but happy to answer questions along the way that you might have. We do have a Chart Your Path series, which helps candidates go through the process of learning about the Tepper School, learning about the different organizations and the career opportunities and leadership journeys our students have. And I know that Corey Fowler, the president of Out and Allied, also offered his information, and I'm going to put that here in the chat as well for the link to the Out and Allied organization if you'd like to learn more. And I'll put my email in here as well. If you have any questions, you can feel free to contact me and we can set up some time to chat. There was one last question, not related to Out and Allied or LGBTQ plus necessarily, but about sort of with COVID and everything, what the plans are for spring semester. And I'm not sure I know what those are, but if anybody's able to talk about what classes will look like in 2021.
I can quickly answer that. And for the spring semester, I think CMU will continue to offer a hybrid model. So I think for Tepper, almost half of the class will offer in person. You can go to school and you have to wear a mask in the classroom and during in the campus, and the other half we offer in the remote format. Because some of the class that are kind of communication class, like business, acting for business, or those that you have to present, those that will be conducted in the remote, because you professor needs to see your face, right? But there are many classes that we offer in person next semester.
Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that.
And yeah, and I would like, and I don't know how many times I thanks that I end up applying for Tepper, because I know that a lot of others business school they offer full 100% online, but at CMU, at Tepper, we kind of go through the hybrid model. I'm thankful for that.
And I'm also thankful for the response of the students. Honestly, like in the COVID dashboard that Carnegie Mellon has, you can see the results of where we are as a campus with the response to COVID and the testing. The results that we've seen has been pretty low and minimal. And I know not all universities have had the same response from the students. And I think actually there's probably been more positive cases of faculty and staff than students at this point. So I'm really impressed with the response that the students have had to taking this seriously and wearing masks and all of the protocols that we need to follow. So thank you, students, for doing that, for also being here today, our panelists, Michael, Ashley, Ham, and Sean. Thank you for spending part of your afternoon here, sharing your stories and your insights. Again, look forward to receiving your applications coming up here around 2, 3, or 4. Or chatting with you in some way to help you in your MBA journey. I'm excited to learn more about you. And thank you everybody for being here today and learning about the Tepper School. Have a wonderful day, evening, morning, wherever it is you are, and take care. Be safe, be healthy, and thanks again. Bye.